everyone. Welcome to HerPath, the podcast for busy women looking for health, happiness, and purpose. And in today's episode, we're going to shed some light on understanding menopause and its impact on our weight. Ugh. So, what is menopause? It's a natural transition that marks the end of menstruation. Typically occurs between 45 and 55, and it's diagnosed after you have 12 consecutive months without a menstrual period. So, let's talk about how hormones affect weight gain. For sure, declining estrogen because estrogen helps regulate metabolism and body fat distribution. When those levels drop, fat is more likely to accumulate around our belly rather than the hips and thighs. When progesterone goes, it leads to increased water and retention and bloating, which might feel like weight gain too. And then the testosterone goes as well. So testosterone supports our muscle mass. With lower levels, muscle loss can occur, and that leads to a slower metabolism. And then there's insulin resistance. So as estrogen levels drop, the body becomes less sensitive to insulin, leading to blood sugar fluctuations, sugar cravings, and increased fat storage. So there's some common weight loss challenges during menopause. On average, your metabolism slows down. On average, women lose between 3 to 5% of muscle mass every decade after the age of 30, which less muscle mass means fewer calories burned at rest because muscle mass is metabolically active, meaning your body will burn calories without you doing a ding-dong thing. So the basal metabolic rate naturally declines, so eating the same amount as you did before can lead to weight gain, which is really, really frustrating.
I have to just pause you for a second. Sorry, Nancy. I didn't mean to interrupt, but this is really depressing.
I know.
It
Like,
is. Yes.
like, what? Like, that's, I
Yeah,
mean, I know life isn't fair, but what?
I know. You
Yeah.
can eat the same amount and still gain weight, which is really, really frustrating.
Yeah. I agree with you, Beth. Like I I know it's part of life and we all go through it and every woman has always gone through it. But the science is so important for us to know. But
Hmm.
it's depressing. And how
It
can
is.
how can we turn that around, right?
Well,
The
Yeah.
thing is that it kind of feels like it just happens, though. Doesn't it
mhm.
feel like just at least one day you kind of look in the mirror and you think, what the heck is this? What
Right.
the heck
What
is this
happened?
pouch here on my gut? Like, why is it that it's just, hanging over more than normal? Or why is it that all of a sudden I'm, just feeling so tired and I just don't want to move? Or why is it that I can just, look at a cupcake and it feels like I gain 5 pounds overnight when I was in my 20s, all I had to do was take a turd and it was gone?
Right.
So, and I'm not eating differently, I'm not eating anything differently than before. But these changes that are happening, it seems like it's just like an overnight thing, but it isn't.
Yeah.
Right? It's something that as our body starts talking to us even before we have the drastic change, but
Right.
how can we pay attention to some of those signs so that we can counter it, counter the effects of a natural change that will happen to all of us?
Right.
And combat, like it feels like it feels like our bodies are fighting with us a little. Like we know in our heads we need to do more muscle training and we need to exercise differently to keep that, keep from losing that muscle mass, right? It's so important. But on the other side, we're exhausted. And the last thing I want to do is go down to the basement and pick up some weights and do some weight training. Like, I'd rather, hang from my toenails, right? I just don't want to do it.
You make
So
it sound like a torture chamber in the basement.
it is. I do think of it. It's a very nice basement. It's refinished, but I do. I look at that whole rack of weights and I'm like, oh,
I do too. I
yeah.
hate it.
There's a couch down there too, which is a bad thing because
Oh,
just rather
nice.
lay down on the couch than pick up those weights.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, yeah, it is. It's a push and pull, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And so what are some things that we could do, Nancy, do you feel, or how can we pay attention a little bit more to our body, either before we start to really have such a change that it's really physically um super problematic, Like, is there hope for us?
I think so. Well, menopause for sure can be stressful because our mood changes, the sleep changes, body image changes. And for me personally, family dynamics changed because I was that sandwich generation. My kids were teens, my parents were kind of on the click down. And so all of that for me really pushed my cortisol levels. And I think just really being really aware of what's going on in your world and really, and I was not, I was like trying to keep all the plates spinning, and I lost myself. Just kind of
Mm.
sad, but hey, I
And you
think
know what? But that happens.
I know.
That's where I am right now, Nancy. So I am squarely in that sandwich generation.
Yeah,
And I think, I was telling you guys before we hit record that I've been a single parent for two weeks because my husband is in Europe. And just taking care of teens is not easy, right? It
no,
is hard work. It is not for the weak of heart. And I'm also a caretaker for my father, and I
right,
also run my own business.
yeah,
And there's a lot going on in the world right now. And you're right, like that, being aware of all the things that are going on and the fact that menopause hits when most of us are in that sandwich generation is just like mean. I just think the
uh-huh,
universe is mean with that. So
yeah.
I'm all ears, Nancy. I want to know, how do we keep our sanity, keep our health, keep our eye on the prize during this crazy time of menopause and sandwich generation and all the things?
I really think you need to be aware of what's going on. Like, okay, what age did my mom go through menopause? What am I experiencing with my cycles? Is my flow more heavy or is it light? Is it longer or shorter? Or what's going on? How's my sleep? For sure, sleep disturbances come in because we get insomnia, the hot flashes and night sweats wake us up, and then that leads to more cravings because that impacts our ghrelin and our leptin. And the ghrelin is your hunger hormone, and that increases, lack of sleep increases your ghrelin, and it decreases the fullness hormone, which is the leptin, which leads to overeating. So, I'm a big fan of awareness. What's going on, with me? What's my eating habits like? Am I getting my protein in? If you aim for 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, that's really good, which that's hard for me lately. I don't know why. My appetite's really changing and it's really hard for me to get the protein in. But
Right. For me,
because,
I felt like what you're saying, once I realized that sleep was really something that if I was off on my sleep,
right,
then there was no way that I was going to be able to stick to any kind of structure, or no way that my mood was going to be optimal, or my energy. And so that was probably in my mid 30s when I finally figured out, like, it doesn't matter how much work you have left. It doesn't matter how clean the house is. It doesn't matter, just turn everything off and really work on that sleep. And that has made such a big difference, at least for me, to really help me support my brain and my hormonal balance.
amen.
Because now, like, that I'm approaching my 50s, sleep is, has
Non-negotiable.
I don't have that exhaustion that I had when I was in my mid 30s. I mean, I was exhausted all the time. It felt like there was a magnet underneath my bed or on the couch where I just could not rip myself out of bed. But at the same time, there were a lot of things that I wouldn't on purpose go to bed. I would wait until I was like half dead until I would crawl into my bed, or I would sit down on the couch and fall asleep on the couch watching TV instead of intentionally making a structured bedtime routine. So it was kind of, being aware of what is the biggest challenge right now for me, and then really tackling like one thing at a time. So for me, first it was tackling the sleep. And then after I tackled that and kind of, really worked and got on a roll with the sleep, then I started working on, okay, what am I doing with my diet that isn't working for me? And I figured out that sugars and gluten were not my friends
Right.
at all. And so I did,
Alcohol, sadly.
eliminate those things, and then started adding a little bit of fasting, intermittent fasting, and that made a huge difference with getting reversing weight gain because it felt like every week I was getting another pound and another pound and another pound. And it's like, I don't eat unhealthy, I exercise, what is happening? And so really focusing on sleep and then journaling what I was eating and eliminating certain things was able to figure out, these are the things that if I eat it overnight, I get the bloat. I'm poofy. My rings don't fit me. My eyes look like they're swollen. And so eliminating those things that you identify cause you negative side effects and getting rid of them.
For sure. I would notice a lot of times if I didn't sleep well, I really wanted sugar. And finally it was like, well, it's naturally an intuitive way to get my energy going. My energy would go up and then it would crash, up and crash. So yeah, I had to really take charge of that for sure, getting in healthy fats and good fiber-rich carbs like quinoa, sweet potatoes, legumes, whole grains. Yeah, had to really bring in even anti-inflammatory foods because that chronic inflammation can really slow our metabolism too. And
Do
then
you have it,
alcohol.
Nancy, with your clients that when they start making these changes, that initially, because it happened with me, you start feeling worse before you start feeling better? Because I know when I got rid of gluten and sugar, that I felt like I had the flu almost, like for a whole month. I
Yeah,
was
keto
I
flu.
was more tired. I felt like I had headaches. I felt a little bit weaker when I first got rid of these things. Is that something you hear from your
Yeah, I
clients?
think I think if your body is used to sugar, you're a sugar burner. And that switching into fat burning can take a little bit. You can kind of go through a little bit of the carbohydrate hell because your body is just kind of fussing. It's demanding sugar. It shows up in the like flu feelings, the headache feelings, the achiness. So yeah. So you can just gradually, I mean, not do it cold turkey, but gradually back down. I think it makes it an easier transition. But alcohol, I'm sorry, I love alcohol, but it doesn't like me at all. It really interrupts my sleep. I can plan on not sleeping if
Ugh,
I have a
yeah,
drink of a glass of wine, which is kind of sad in a way. But it really is a poison and it's really toxic to our brains.
Yeah.
right.
So
Hey, Beth, I'm curious because you're kind of our guru on food as medicine. And when you think about menopause and how we fuel our bodies and how we get through this time that we will all have, I love what Nancy's saying about the right kind of foods and Gabby talking about, proteins and getting rid of sugars. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, thanks, Elise, for asking. I think really just focusing on eating more vegetables and fruit, like the more vegetables and fruit and um, you know, clean protein that your body can handle. And if you anything comes in a package or was made in a lab, probably don't eat it, right? Just like get to as close to as mother nature as you can, right? Like think of going to the garden and picking the tomato off of the vine, right? That tomato just it tastes like you can't even describe it. It is just so much better than a tomato from the store, right? And then just think about a tomato that's crushed up and sitting in, an aluminum can. There's different nutrient differences between the one that you just picked out of your own garden versus the one that's sitting in a can. And so just really kind of bringing that awareness to like, what is your food source? How are you fueling your body? Like, think about, we don't need that much to survive to eat. We think we do. But if we're eating quality, nutritious, high value uh, food, you don't need that much. Just literally fruits, vegetables, and protein and good fats, right? And I think bringing in also some inflammatory practices early on, like incorporating like turmeric and things like that, and shifting away from drinking like the alcohol and um, having too much of anything, really. Too much coffee, don't, sugar, avoid the sugar. I think sugar and flour If people eliminated those two things from their diet, I think it would make a huge difference in people's in their weight and their metabolism and their really their mental health, mental and emotional health, because you're not on this roller coaster, right? Up and down, like trying to chase this, I don't know, trying to get the balance when you're just going up and down. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit. So as a busy mom who's in the middle of the sandwich generation and feeling like I'm at my wit's end, sometimes the last thing, and you guys know, sometimes the last thing I want to do is cook a meal and make it healthy and chop the vegetables and, get the organic chicken or all the things. So I I know that those are the right things to do, right? But I also know there are millions of women out there who can't make that happen. So,
The obstacle of having that, right? How
yeah,
do you overcome that?
whether it's the access to it, whether it's the time to do it, whether they're working evenings, whatever, you know, and I know that some people can say there's an excuse for everything, but I want to get down to real life, right? People are super busy. There's a lot going on, pulling at your time, pulling at your attention. What are simple things that we can do to infuse that eating that we all know that we should be doing in the middle of a chaotic time of life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, for me, and what I recommend is to figure out what could be your go-to fast food meals, like healthy fast food meals. Like for an example, um, one of my mentors, it just blew my mind how simple it could be. So for an example, she used 10 or 12 ounces of cabbage and greens and whatever, and sauteed up some ground burger and measured out 4 ounces of burger, put a tablespoon of fat and put it on that salad and put some salt on it. And that was the meal. Like that's easy.
Mhm.
Like we try to make it hard. Like the more we keep things simple, the better.
I'll
Yeah.
tell you what I do. I have four kids. I work full time. My husband travels sometimes. I don't have a nanny. I don't have a helper at home. And, I have to pick up the little one, drop her off. I have teenagers who eat like horses, and I cook. However, I'm not a gourmet. I'm not like fancy smancy, and I don't like to spend a lot of money on exotic ingredients. So it does take a few minutes. It doesn't take that long, a few minutes to think about it in that spare time. And you have to make the time to think ahead of time. All right, this week, what are going to be our go-to proteins? I usually have two proteins that I go to. So either chicken breasts or some kind of pork roast. And on the weekend, I either Instacart, you order your groceries ahead of time, or do a grocery run to get the things that I need for the week. I actually do it for the week because when I get home, I'm exhausted. I don't really want to be making a meal from scratch. And I don't like fast food. I honestly, not that I don't like it, but I prefer not to eat it because I'll get a stomach ache. The kids will get stomach aches and will get sick. And then the second, it's expensive. Like for five people, fast food is not cheap anymore, and it's not fast. You sit there, I sit there waiting. I have to park to the side, and then it takes them like 30 minutes to bring out my dang burgers. I'm like, I could have cooked something and finished eating by now if I would have just gone straight home and made something. So I'll make a sheet pan of chicken breasts, like a whole sheet pan of chicken breasts. I'll just, salt, pepper, some whatever seasonings, throw them in the oven, a big sheet pan of veggies, whatever veggies you like. You can roast anything and it'll taste good. I even roast kale. And so roast it. And then I have them in my little containers in the fridge. I'll also do a whole grain. So usually right now I've been doing a lot of quinoa. So I'll make a big pot of quinoa. And then I usually have condiments at home, salsa, some kind of pickled veggies to kind of mix and match. And then I also always have some kind of salad greens in the fridge. And that's it. And you can mix and match, oh, the pork roast, I make it in the crock pot. I put it in there at night, season it, put whatever, let it on low. And then by the next day, it's already cooked. And so I'm not standing in front of the stove all day long or all night long. I'm not having to make something from scratch every single night. Food usually keeps like 5 days in your fridge if you, put it up, and that's it, done. And if a kid is picky that day, which is usually the 7-year-old, and she doesn't want what is there, then, I can easily boil a ramen or, make some mac and cheese, and she doesn't die and she's okay. And even though it doesn't have all of the vitamins and minerals, and maybe there is some artificial dye in there, but you know what? She's good. And so we tend to overcomplicate things sometimes. But it does take a little bit of planning. It does take a little bit of, you know, action, but then you setting yourself up for less stress the rest of the week.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
it's like the delayed gratification concept. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you really don't want to do it in the moment. And there are tricks, like Gabby clearly has her go-tos and her tricks, and I have my go-tos and tricks. Like, I don't spend hours and hours and hours. There have been times where I do, and sometimes I enjoy that. But like, for lunch is the same. Like food prep for my lunches, 5 days out of the week takes barely any time. The time to boil eggs. So I have boiled eggs, fresh vegetables, and avocado fat. Done.
Good.
That that's a simple, easy meal. It has your fat, it has your protein, it has your fiber, and that's so it sustains me at least for 4 hours. Like I feel full and satisfied. And then at about 4 hours, when my blood sugar, like then it's time for my body to dine in, right? Like it can burn its own body fat. I can burn my own body fat for fuel instead of like getting a little snack or whatever. And like practicing that we the the more complicated we make it, I don't know, it just seems to be, it could be so easy. And I think why that intermittent fasting and just sticking with, a simple, like the more simple and I guess strict or more narrow something is, there's so much more freedom in it. It's so fascinating.
It is freeing. And then getting over but I don't feel like eating that right now.
I
It took
know.
me a while to get past that. And I had to understand that if my brain is giving me that bullshit of, I don't feel like eating that right now, I treat my brain the way I treat my 7-year-old. Well, then you must not be that hungry right now because you obviously thought this chicken and quinoa and kale was a good idea when you made it and you like chicken and quinoa and kale. So if you don't want to eat it right now, then just wait until you actually get hungry and you'll eat it. And I tell myself that literally. And over the years, I don't get that thought anymore. Now I've trained myself to I cook things that taste good and that we like to eat. And so when it's there and ready for me, I kind of thank myself. And I even say it out loud. My poor husband, I gave him such a hard time because he doesn't cook for me or anything like that, right? So sometimes when he gets home and food is warmed up and thanks for making dinner, babe, and I'll tell myself, yes, honey, yes, Gabby, thank you for looking out for everyone. Thanks for looking out for me too, Gabby. If you didn't do this, we would starve to death. Oh my God, you're so amazing. And so I do tell myself thank you out loud sometimes. Thanks for looking out for me ahead of time.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it really does help.
I do love that what both of you your examples of how you prep and do the same thing. You're eating just what Nancy was saying is the best way to eat for menopause.
Mhm.
And batching it the way both of you do is such a great, and we all know it, but if you can get in the habit of doing it, it makes such a big difference.
And taking out that decision, it's like the luxury of not making a decision, having it all ready and to go, and then it's one less thing you've got to figure out.
Right.
And even though we are eating the way Nancy is recommending, the inevitable is still going to happen.
Yeah.
All those wonderful things that Nancy was sharing at the beginning of our conversation. So I'm very curious, like Nancy, I'm sure that you have some ideas on how to maybe show us ourselves some self-compassion and acceptance and help us get through this it's a challenging time in our life, right? Like it feels like it's a curse a little bit.
It is, it is. But I think, instead of doing restrictive diets, focus on nourishment and balance. You got to set realistic expectations. So your weight loss may be slower, but smaller changes really add up. And I think if you measure your progress through energy levels, strength, and how your clothes fit than just a scale, it's good. And then practicing self-love and gratitude. You have to go from I have to lose weight to I want to feel strong, energized, and vibrant. And then for me, it was like celebrating what my body's done for me. I've done so many trips, I've done so many things, childbirth, really making a list of everything, you can do to celebrate your physical body. And then having a group of women that are going through, the same challenges. And then working with a coach or a nutritionist or a fitness trainer who understands menopause. Being really proactive is huge, knowing that I call it see the train coming. Don't get run over by it, but, get out of the way, take a deep breath, focus on your small wins.
And Nancy, you have an amazing Facebook group that you
I do.
run
Yes.
on menopause. Will you tell our listeners about it? Because it is really such a wealth of knowledge and tips and trips and there's humor there. It is just an amazing resource for women, and I think everybody should be on it.
It's called Perimenopause and Beyond. It's on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody should go there. Everybody should be on it. It's really such a great resource.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So final calls to action is to start with one small change today, whether it's increasing your protein, taking a walk, reducing sugar. So weight loss is possible in menopause, but your focus should be on sustainable long-term results. And that's all I've got. So thank you, ladies, for joining me.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Bye.
Hey, one more thing before we leave. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are certified professional coaches, but this broadcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next week.